So I want to tell you a story of something that happened to me about October of last year. I was working on a presentation not unlike the one you're going to see today, and I'd settled into my home office. And if your home office is anything like mine, all of the junk mail that I receive that I just don't want to deal with just piles up. And right now, I've got maybe 4 or 5 stacks of this, and I keep wondering why marketers keep sending that stuff to us. But so I was sitting down to work on a presentation like this one, and friends, I suffer from a condition I call procrastination. That means whenever there's something important for me to do, I find some other thing to do instead. And this day when I needed to be working on my slides, I decided it was time to shred all this paper. So I did what anyone else would do. I went and I grabbed my $25 Amazon paper shredder, and I went to town, and how many sheets of paper did I get through before that thing crapped out on me? 10. Oh, that would have been great. And it was like 2.5, okay? 2.5. So anyways, I'm at my desk, and usually when I sit down to work, I'll have a laptop and obviously have a pile of papers, and I tend to have a nice 32-ounce container of water, right? And so imagine me, I'm up sort of under my desk like this. I'm trying to unjam the paper shredder, and I lean up, and what happens next, friends? I smash my head. That's right, Bobby, and you know what happens when I do that? All of a sudden, that container of water, as I hit the desk, pours right into the center of my MacBook Pro. I still get shaken up thinking about this moment. So I started to panic. I leapt into action. I pulled the wires out. I was there in my office holding the laptop upside down, shaking the water out of it. And at this point, I realized I'd done everything that I could do to solve this problem. But wait a minute. It was 8:45 on a Thursday night, and I live exactly 10 minutes from Crabtree Valley Mall. So I hopped in my car, I put the laptop in my passenger seat, and I buckled it in, as you would, and then ran to the Apple store, and then I ran into, as I walked through the door, a guy who looked something like this. And I knew he worked for the Apple store because he was wearing a t-shirt, and he was wearing jeans that were too tight. So I told him that I had spilled water on my laptop. It happened just 10 minutes ago, and I would love to talk to someone about it. And he looked at me with the biggest, most cheerful smile ever, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we're about to close, and there are no more appointments available today." I looked back at him and I said, "I don't need an appointment. I need to see someone." Not understanding the difference between those two statements, he called his manager over. And his manager proceeded to tell me all the reasons he could not help me. And then, as if it was like in a Western movie where the hero kind of rides in on a horse, right? You guys familiar with these? One of the Mac geniuses came over, looked me dead in my eye, and said, "I hear we have a water problem." And then proceeded to tell me that we would go through some exploratory surgery as a courtesy to me to figure out how bad the damage was. Well, it turns out the damage was actually bearable. But as I got to thinking about this situation, it reminded me of what happens so many times in business. We get so dedicated to the business process, the systems we have in place, the technology we have in place, that the humanity just kind of falls out of business. Am I right? In fact, business, let's say 100 years ago, you just had a few people you were serving, maybe a few hundred people, right? We got this great idea that we could bring in technology, and then all of a sudden we could serve many, many, many more people. And with that, the humanity fell out of business. But I believe that technology, when you deploy it properly, can be a strategic advantage, your unfair advantage to being more human in business as opposed to being less. So the folks at trendwatching.com call this a sixth sense. That all brands are collecting consumer data. In fact, they say even the stupid brands are collecting consumer data. So friends, if you're not collecting consumer data, see me after. However, the smart brands have developed what's called InfoSense. That is the ability to use data to understand your needs as an individual, and then for the brand to personalize that experience. Jack Welch perhaps said it best. He said there are only 2 keys to competitive advantage. Number 1 is learning more about your customers faster than your competition. Number 2 is putting those insights into action faster than the competition. Insights into actions. So today I want to share a piece of research with you from an IBM study. And the first piece from this particular study is that 76% of consumers studied said they expect organizations to understand their individual needs. And to me, that is, what is the relationship you have with your customer? Second piece, 81% demand improved response time. That is, how responsive are we to our customers? How do we anticipate their needs? And finally, this is my favorite, 68% expect that organizations will harmonize the customer experience. So where are my musicians in the room? We got a few. What does it mean? Someone shouted out to harmonize. How does it sound when you harmonize? Good, exactly. How does it sound when you don't harmonize? Terrible. Kind of like a 5th grade band concert, am I right? And that's because I believe, as well-intentioned as all of those 5th graders might be, they're probably not all on the same sheet of music. And if they've managed to pull up the right sheet of music, they're probably not in the same measure, you know what I mean? And so to get to the point where you're ready to work together as a team, to get all of your departments of your company in order, you have to be ready. And readiness doesn't come from just doing one thing. Readiness comes from training. Actually spending time to get ready for that big event, kind of like if you were training for a marathon. Okay, so this is a room full of smart people. What do I call this framework? Here's a hint. The 3 R's. Fancy that, right? And so we're going to dive into a couple of examples of companies who are using the 3 R's to create those relationships with their customers. So first I want to introduce you to a gentleman by the name of Doug Logue. This is Doug Logue right here. And Doug was on a bachelor party trip to Toronto a couple of years ago. And no, this is not a story about what happens on a bachelor party trip. Doug, it turns out, is happily married, but he had this nagging feeling the entire time he was gone. He almost dismissed it as guilt, but then it hit him like a cold shower. That the day he arrived back from Toronto was his wife's birthday. Now, gentlemen in the room, those of you who are married, what are the consequences inside your home if you forget your wife's birthday? They're pretty bad, right? Exactly. This is why I'm not married. But Doug said, you know what, I'll solve this problem. I'll go online, I'll go to the Tory Burch website, I'll place an order, all is well. Well, then he found out his order was going to arrive late. And what's worse than forgetting your wife's birthday? Trying to make up for it the next day, right? You kind of get this number when you try to do that? All that said, Doug said, I can solve this. As soon as he got back to his home in Florida, he walked into a Tory Burch store. And this is where he met Michelle, the sales associate. And in the process, Michelle said, no problem. We'll get this all taken care of. Here, we'll ring up a pair of these shoes for you today. I see you bought a size 7.5. We will take care of this. You just bring the other pair back. We'll refund you. Life will be good when those come in. Okay, great. Doug's wife is happy. They return to the store a few days later, return the other pair of shoes. And then this is where his experience changes. 2 days later, he receives a call from Michelle at Tory Burch thanking him for the purchase, mentioning that she saw his wife checking out another pair of their famous shoes and suggested that he might want to get her another gift. And he said, well, you know, we just did shoes one time. We're not going to do that again, but thank you, Michelle. Another 2 weeks go by, he receives an email from Michelle. Hey, Doug, this is Michelle from Tory Burch again. Hey, remember that other pair of shoes your wife was looking at? It turns out they are now on special. Would you like for me to set aside a size 6.5 for her for the holidays? Doug is a man who learns from experience. And he said, yes, Michelle, let's do that. But in thinking about this, Doug and Michelle said, why? Doug said to his wife, why? Why on earth are we getting such personal attention from Michelle? We must have been problem customers for her that she remembers us. But it turns out that's not the case. Because the folks at Tory Burch, they have something called Client Book. And Client Book is an application that takes data from their online sales as well as from their in-store sales. And every single associate has an iPad available to them with that complete record of that customer, with their sizes, with their wish list, such that whenever they go in the store, and you ask about something for your wife or maybe something for yourself, the sales associate has all the records of what you like and can then personalize the experience you receive. Truly use that as InfoSense. Now you might ask me, Evan, does this hit the bottom line? I think it does, because it turns out that customers who have a client book profile have an average order value that is 62% higher than other customers. So one more company who does a great job with InfoSense, and you may not even realize it, my friends, is one that happens to exist at the happiest place on earth. Verily, the happiest place on earth. There it is. And you wouldn't, so many speakers will come and talk about the Disney experience and just how wonderful it is, but the thing you don't know is that there is so much data powering this experience, it is not even funny, my friends, because deep below Cinderella Castle is this thing called the Disney Operational Command Center. They can look and see what wait times are like in the park. They can look and see which areas of the park are more full and which ones are more empty. They can figure out everything that's going on. I first learned about the Operational Command Center from a New York Times article. In this photo, the gentleman in the gray is a New York Times reporter. The gentleman in the salmon has the greatest job title on this planet. Wait for this. In the salmon is Phil Holmes. At the time, he was the vice president of the Magic Kingdom. Friends, I have a Google alert set up. If that job ever becomes available, I'm applying. It turns out the perk of his job is that his office is above the bakery on Main Street, USA. So there's a parade by his window 3 times a day. And speaking of that wonderful parade, in the Operational Command Center, let's say that Adventureland is kind of full of people and Tomorrowland is kind of empty. They have an on-demand parade they can dispatch that strategically jams up certain entrances and exits and opens up others such that you thought it was your idea to go to Tomorrowland instead. It's all powered by data. And it turns out a few years ago, Disney was realizing that they were having trouble with people coming to the park, and those families were not returning. And I have learned that it's actually a very stressful experience to take a Disney vacation. Because I learned firsthand, my mother's in the house, so I can say this, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I learned that no one can suck the fun out of a Disney vacation like my sister. And as well-intentioned as she was in that moment, she was trying to get all 10 of us doing the right things at the right time, but it was a stressful experience for her. It was stressful for us, and quite frankly, it makes you not really want to go back. Disney realized this, and so they decided to apply technology to their problem, and they invented this little thing called the Magic Band. Now, the Magic Band replaces everything you see here. You can pay for things with it. It's your admission to the park. It's a fast pass for your reservation to a ride. It's a photo pass. If your photo's taken, they scan your Magic Band, it shows up in your app. It does all of those things for you. And our own Stan Phelps, ladies and gentlemen, our own Stan Phelps tested this out, and it works better than the analog alternative. Quick bit of trivia for you. When everything is good with the Magic Band, what color does it show up? Let's say things aren't so good. What happens? Ooh, no, my friends. Because there are no errors or problems at the happiest place on earth. Rather, it shows up blue, which literally means you require assistance from a cast member. And the great things that this technology allows Disney to do is to seamlessly manage your experience. You can do all your ride reservations online. Your photos are in your pocket. You can manage the experience in a much more seamless way. And they're able to see that people are getting to see more attractions. But for the moment, let's all understand what technology is in use here. Those Magic Bands are a unique RFID device. They are a tracking device that you willingly put on your wrist so that they could track you. Moreover, they sell other colors of the Magic Band. They sell accessories for them, so leave it to Disney, my friends, to figure out a way to get you to pay for their privilege of tracking you. Because that's exactly what happened. But the benefit is truly to you as a customer. It turns out that at the Magic Kingdom alone, they were able to reduce turnstile time by 30%. 30% faster getting through that turnstile. And because of that and some of the other advancements they made, they were able to increase peak park capacity by 5,000 people. Okay, so someone tell me how much it costs to get in the Magic Kingdom these days. $100 a day. $100 a day. Thank you. You made my math so easy. Because if I take 5,000 and I multiply it by $100 a day, how much money is that in that one day? Larry, you're good at math. What is it? It's $500,000. That's exactly right, Larry. That's exactly right. $500,000, $500,000. Is that money we can take to the bank? I think it absolutely is. I think that absolutely helps their bottom line. You see, friends, when you deploy technology strategically to the benefit of the customer and making it transparent, it can truly create a better experience. And this is something that I believe is a superhuman advantage. A superhuman advantage. Because if you think about how technology has kind of sucked the humanity out of business, if we use technology well and strategically, we can be more than human. We can remember things like Michelle did at Tory Burch. We can create that seamless Disney experience, all because the technology we're using, the data that's powering it, was done so in a way that serves the customer instead of just serving our business processes. And that is the essence of the blue goldfish. So I'd love for you all to say it with me here today. What's your blue goldfish? We're going to try that again. What's your blue goldfish? Thank you all very much.